So I want to welcome Yoko. She doesn't need my welcome, but of course, everybody always needs welcome. But she's a wonderful core part of our Help for Helpers and our Force program. And Yoko and I have collaborated together about the living body and the architectural body for a while, and I'm very I find it so intriguing to bring the complex, interesting philosophy of Arakawa and Gin's about that manifests in architecture along with Jean's idea about the body and the environment as one. And yoga is a focuser and studying counseling, but mainly is an architect. So we're having this wonderful crossing here of focusing and philosophy and architecture. I've always found it very intriguing and difficult to fully get my get my arms around this idea that the body and the environment are one. And I always get it, but it always takes me a second take that our bodies are the environment and the environment are our bodies. And yoga is bringing us a different slant on that today. And I think we're going to find it very mind expansing and heart expansing to experience this. And of course, this is the second time that we've experienced architectural body. So without saying anything more, because we have so much to say and we don't want to use up our time, Yoka.
Okay, hi, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Yeah, so today we're going to go more into the world of Arakawa and Madeline Gins and also trying to see how that world overlaps with Jacqueline's philosophy, and there are many overlappings, and I keep discovering more as I go. I worked with Arakawa and Gins between 2001 and 2014. They both passed away by now, it took me a while also to I've been getting to know focusing since like 4 or 5 years, and kind of took me a while to have some distance from the work situation I was immersed with, and then now kind of coming out of that and kind of combining that with focusing, and it's just really interesting. So yeah, Lynn already said it. Our bodies are inseparable from our environments, and there's a constant interaction. And I think Lynn Rosen must be very well aware of that too. Was amazed by her attunement last week or so. Being aware of the back of my body and all around, and kind of almost, forming my architectural body. It was amazing. So I'm gonna introduce you, show you how Arakawa and Gins went about all this. I'm gonna show a few images. I'm gonna read some quotes because they were also very, they were builders and makers. They started out as painters, but they were also writers, poets, and so they really kind of mixed all of that. So they didn't, they worked from a lot of different angles. And like Gentlin, they worked from practice and from theory almost at the same time, and that kept feeding one another. So Christine, could you show just the first image called Nagi?
Sure. Just it'll take me just a second to get it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
While Christine is getting
Yeah.
it, I'll just ask you, Yoga. I love what you said about that you could feel your architectural body when Lynn gave that attunement, and maybe you could just say another word about that experience. I mean, you've had an amazing experience of working with these architectural philosophers, and then focusing in community empowerment. And so you say it so easily, oh, it grew my architectural body, but maybe you could explain that a little bit more while Christine's getting the image.
Yes. Let's see. Well, it's so the architectural body. It's all about awareness of your environment, and then how that environment reflects onto your body and how it changes as you move around. That's also a very important aspect. It's never, like Gentlin would say, it never is. It's always forming and changing. And yeah, how can I explain? Well, I'll tell you more later about, for instance, landing sites. Landing sites are then certain aspects of your environment that kind of suddenly, for some reason, want your attention. And you can do it just right now in your own room where you're in. If you look around, there's always something catching your eyes, and there are always quite a few somethings, and those somethings that also change all the time. It's not fixed, it's not for an hour the same thing, but they kind of form your environment. This image shows shows a tube from two directions, and this is the first real architectural work that Nala Nadakawa built to kind of show, express, it's the wrong word, but make an environment, like a super environment for an architectural body. This is in Nagi. It's called Ubiquitous Site, Nagi Ryonji Architectural Body. And what happens if you're in this tube, it's on a slight slant. The landing sites here are so precisely situated. They're also how do you say it? They are, what's the word? I'm blanking out. So what you see on your left is the same as what you see on your right. What you see in front is the same as in the back, and the same counts for the ceiling and the floor. And so your body is aware of these landing sites and just feels completely at ease, liberated. People being in this space said they felt the highest amount of ki they ever felt, like life energy. Like the idea is that this is so well constructed that the body doesn't have to spend extra energy in kind of feeling the surroundings, but can just totally let go. It's almost like a form of going inside into your body and you know, being in a space there and kind of totally focused on that. So it's almost, you know, the built example of that. So thanks, Christine. I'm just going to quickly read a quote from Arakava and Madeline.
Before you read the quote, I just
Yeah.
wanted to say that was an amazing image that made people take in
Yeah.
what it would be like to be in that tube and how our bodies would feel in that environment and how that environment would be part of our bodies. Sort of, I don't know, my image was almost like being in a womb or something. But other people will have different associations, but I just wanted to pause there a second. I'm ready for the quote now.
Thank you. Yeah, a pause is good. So yeah, so this quote just says it how Karen and Madeline talk about environment. Having observed near and far how the body moves through its surroundings, having thought lengthily of still other ways to surround it, and having built a few tactically posed surroundings, we now notice ourselves to have been tracing an architectural body, or at least a landscape for one. We see architecture not merely as that which stands by and gets linked up with, as structures that life lightly avails itself of in passing, not passively merely hanging around to provide shelter or monumentality. Architecture, as we newly conceive it, actively participates in life and death matters.
Wow.
Yes. So that says it really well. I think how architecture could be put to use to yeah, has so much more potential than you know, most people think of it, or most architects, most developers, etc. think of it. So Madeline Kawa is, I think, did you say that already, Lynn, that they knew Chatlin's works, and as you kind of gather by now, there are many instances that their ideas and Chatlin's ideas are overlapping, and they even asked Chatlin for their 2010 conference to write an article, and so he wrote this article called Arakavan Gin's The Organism, Person, Environment, Process.
Maybe you can put that article in the chat, Yoka, and people who would like to read it could read that.
Yes, I will do that when I have time to do that at some point. Yes,
Sure.
Okay. Great. Yeah, so organism, person, environment, process. It's kind of a very interesting mix of Madeline's, Arakava's organism, that person, and Chatlin's environment, process. I'll read another quote about that. Arakavan Gin say, born into a new territory, and that territory is myself as an organism. There's no place to go but here. Each organism, like persons, finds the new territory that is itself, and having found it, adjusts it. This is so only if systematically organized events, fields in which relations among events have some degree of order, can count as territories. An organism, person, environment has given birth to an organism, person, environment. the organism we are speaking of persons the world. Other types of organisms, dog, giraffe, or cockroach the world. So yeah, it's I find this such a great way to describe a human being. Once I was in a focusing group, and we made a round, like everyone introduced themselves. People were very creative about, saying their identity, and I was like, gosh, what should I come up with? And I don't know, I want to do something, I want to say something special too, not just yoga pose and this and that. So it suddenly came up, and I said, well, I'm yoga pose, and I'm an organism that persons. And people were so surprised, like, yeah, well, you nailed it. Like everyone also instantly felt like, yeah, that's really that really says it all, and that's a great description. Yeah. So yeah, so Jensen says about this, the personing and the body are not the same thing, but they're also not different. Arakawa and Gins do not begin with the three separate things usually meant by body, person, and environment. The three were not first separate and then combined. Their hyphenated birthing is first. This inging, as I call the birthing process, is not merely the sequence of birthed events, the contents. Yeah, maybe we could take a pause here and see how that sinks in with people, or how that lands. Stay in the same realm.
Is it right, Yoga, to say that the organism that we are is birthed by the environment and births the environment? We're giving birth to our environment, and the environment is giving birth to us.
Yes, and I think so. And then also, we are that process, right? So so there's no separation there. So an important part of Arakawa Ginz's philosophy, and also that of Gentlen's, an important similarity is tentativeness. Arakawa Ginz have made that as one of the pillars of their philosophy, and they actually try to build it. They try to construct tentativeness, and tentativeness in their work relates to Gentlen's kind of fuzzy edge position, or not position because that's too static, but kind of the murky zone, the fuzzy edge, the place where everything's possible, not yet determined, but maybe waiting to happen. In Arakawa and Madeline's architecture, tentativeness is often about, well, sometimes about sowing doubt, basically, like, is this wall going straight up, or is this, does it make a little shift? And like, oh, these two rooms, they look exactly the same, but I know there's something different. and turns out what's something different is they have the same windows, but one window is half the size of the other. So you're constantly doubting what you see. You can't be always just sure. The thing is also what happens is that the architecture is talking to you and you're talking back. So there's this really concrete interaction between you and the architecture. Another example is that they have 2 toilets in the bathroom back to back. And that's a tentativeness in the sense that whenever you want to go to the bathroom, you have to stop a moment, or just even a split second. You kind of have to make up your mind, like, which toilet am I going to do right now? Which toilet am I going to use right now? And they think that's a very important moment. It's a little pause, it's a little interaction, a little conversation with yourself, with you in the toilet. And like every time you have to do that. I thought it was not good for people, for life process, to always be so goddamn sure of oneself. So that's that's a very important part. So they call the architectural surrounds they're making tentative constructions toward holdings in place on many scales of action. And then they say an architectural body critically ever examining and always assessing holds possibilities in place. So there's a constant, very active dynamic going on between the person and the architectural surrounds, and of course between the person and any environment. But the thing about an architectural environment, of course, is that it's almost like a type of curated environment. That's why they call it a tactically posed surround. It's a very carefully, like the first example I showed you of the Nagi tube, that's like a super curated environment. So maybe it's time now. How am I doing, Lynn, on time and everything?
You're doing great on everything. Maybe we'll want to have people's input. I was just thinking, Yoko, when you were talking about the not being sure, how Jenlin and Arakawa and Gens are trying to cultivate awareness and sort of wake people up, and doing it in sort of different ways. Don't take things for granted. Don't just go to sleep to what's happening.
Yes. Yeah.
I suddenly looked around my apartment and I said, oh, this is a tactically posed surround. And we're all making these tactically posed surrounds for ourselves.
Yeah. Maybe it's time we show a picture of Bijsgelief House.
Oh, great idea.
Yeah. So, Christine.
Yeah. Hi, I'm here. Which one, Yoka?
It's called number 2.
Labeled Live Kitsch Barbo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks.
This is a house that you worked on with your own hands and
yes,
saving and have been, carrying forward for years.
Yes. So this is a view into the living area. Well, one of the things that, of course, catches your eye is the undulating floor. So the floor is not flat, and that's a very important part of the architecture it's like to have movability in all dimensions, and you can be aware and get to know the space in every, you know, on every height, not just all on one level, right? It changes all the time as you move along. The table using the front is basically the outline of the house itself, and the skylights as well. So while you're in the house, you also know the shape of the house. And that's another very important part, because in order to feel good and at ease in your architectural body, you have to thoroughly understand and know your environment. So it's a help to really know it. And then Christine, there's a second picture, if you want to show that, of the house. It's number 3, if you want to show that, please.
The colors are amazing.
Yeah, the colors, and then the light changing constantly, how the place looks like. And you can't see it, but the ceiling has hooks, and you were supposed to hang your belongings, like your coat and your bag and whatever, on those hooks in the ceiling, and that way you would transform the space as you go, you know, and you would also directly, you know, change your architectural surround. You're not dependent on what the architects have figured out for you. So I don't know, maybe, I don't know, Christine, could you show the other picture, number 3? Okay. So, and then you see these colored posts. People always say like, oh, those posts are there because otherwise people will fall on that crazy floor. But that's not why they are there. The posts are there to kind of mark the space. And if you would imagine them away, the space gets way less voluminous, volume. They kind of mark the volume of the space. It's like a forest. The floors, maybe we have to give up on this second picture because it's taking a little bit too much time.
No, this was the second picture.
Oh no, picture number 3. I mean,
Oh, we want a different one. Okay.
See picture number 3, yeah. Oh.
I think that's 1.
This is number 2, and then number 3.
Little technological problem here.
Yeah, it's okay. So people were always very critical. They are still about the floors. Like suddenly it's unacceptable to walk on an undulating path when it's inside and inside your house, you know. And people said you can walk there, but other comedians said, well, if you can walk, then just crawl or do something else. Like there's always different ways to navigate the floor. Okay, so we maybe just go on.
Christine says there's one more picture, but not of the house.
Oh,
That she
okay,
doesn't
that's just,
have memory. Okay,
no
so we'll,
problem. Thank
we'll-
you. That's just, yeah. So, thanks. Let's see. Oh yeah. So, I wanted to. So when Lynn and I were talking, Lynn asked me like, what is the difference? Like, what do you feel is the difference between Arakawan Madeleine's way of, you know, creating awareness and Jentlen's way? And so we came to it that in Jentlen's way, it's from the inner of the body, right? And Arakawan Madeleine's way, like they from then it's from the outer body in. It's almost like it's the same movement but two different directions in a way. Did I say that right, Lynn?
well, I think with the complexity of these philosophies, it may be difficult to say something simple like that. But what we were thinking
Yeah.
is that the invitation of focusing is to sort of close your eyes and go inside. And the invitation of Arakawan Gens is look at the surround and allow the landing sites that grab your attention to wake you up, and then see how that feels in your body. So you're stimulated from the environment, and Jenlin, you're taking things inside. But it sort of is difficult to say because you're taking those landing sites and bringing them inside, which is sort of like focusing too. So I don't know if our distinction really holds water when you really think about it, but it's
Right.
a nice first one.
Yes. Yeah. How are we doing on time?
I think it's time to hear from people. Because
Yeah.
we want to give people a chance to do a wonderful exercise in the breakout room. So let's hear from people, and then like at 9:05, we'll experiment and play together with these ideas.
Yeah.
You gave us so much to think about, and I'm sure there are plenty of questions and thoughts and comments. This is sort of like another kind of poetry that teases you and says, wow, what does that mean? I did some focusing with Madeleine, and I was always like, what? Really? Oh, you mean, and then, oh, it really takes focusing to even get to the question. So we're very eager to hear from you. That was such fun, Yoka, the way that you portrayed that to us and read us those quotes, entering into a whole different world.
Well, thank you, Yoka. This was, I don't know, it's awakening. I would love to live in a space like this where, I need some areas I gotta crawl, and some areas, and I'm hanging my coat wherever on those books, and it changes the environment. I think this is such a playground for, being awake and co-creating with our environment outside and inside. And I must have missed something, but are you making houses like this for real and people can live in it?
Well, I still have to get to it, but yeah, I would love to make the next one. Yes.
And which country are you in?
Well, I'm in New York City now. Yeah, I'm originally from the Netherlands.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I like what you said, the co-creating, like you and this environment. And I think it is very well put. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on what Sophie said. First, Yoka, thank you so much. This is a lot to think about. I was watching my own body and insides, and your the second photograph of play came immediately, and freedom, that how free one would be. And I was thinking of all the things one could do on those poles. This was just overflowing. But then also, when you said you could hang your coat there, I was aware of a feeling of a challenge and constriction, because my living currently is so conscribed into little boxes that there's work. Where would I work there? How could I work there? So the environment challenged my body in terms of, Sophie, you said something about living. Could you live there? And it was a real inspiration for me to imagine that my body needs the freedom as well as the boxes. And finally, aging. My sense of myself now as an older person, and how I would be limited in what I could do there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Betty. That's wonderful. And I think yeah, it's great that your environment has some challenges for you, that not everything is all laid out and fixed, and like you come into a house and everything is like set up for you, right? And then the other thing is what you say about aging. It reminded me of what Arakawa used to say. He said, like, well, every person who lives here a week or longer, you'll get used to moving around like this, and everyone eventually becomes like a ballet dancer. Like, you just live and learn, and and if you get old and you can't stand up, then just be on your knees or something.
Of course, they were dedicated to the idea that people could reverse their destiny and be younger, not get older and older or more enfeebled. So a lot of this is also about the environment and the challenges of the environment helping us to be younger and freer, rather than getting set in our ways. Maybe that would be the common way of saying it. You can't get set in your ways in that house. And I want to say that people wouldn't maybe live there forever, because then they'd get used to those constrictions. But maybe to spend a week in a house like that, you would, at the end of that week, you would have a different body, a different awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that a
So
very
one
good
thing that-
idea, because at the end of, I would like to go home then after a while.
And then I bet your home would be, you would make your home different. then.
I think it will break the mold, but at some time, because I think one would create another mold in that environment. And what's different about that than having any mold? And I also wonder, how is this concept different from 100, Friedrich Reich, 100 Wasser? Are you familiar? I'm sure you're familiar.
Yes. Mhm.
Or anthroposophic architecture. How does that differ? I mean, it's more extreme.
It's yeah. I haven't really studied the differences, but my first reaction is that my first take on it is that it's more extreme and at the same time more exact. For Karen Gins, it was almost a science, like, and maybe if you would know more about it, because I only gave you a little glimpse, if you would know more about it, you would see that. Yeah. Thank you.
One thing
Yoke,
that I'm still
Yoke, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi,
Okay.
Susan.
Hi, I was wondering if you could say a little bit or give an example for us of how it is exact. Because I don't see that. I mean, it looks like such a bizarre, playful, new novel thing.
Mhm.
But I guess perhaps if you're talking about the tables and the space and the ceiling, is it that an example of exactness? Are you referring to how it fits the human body in a particular way?
Yeah. Thanks, Susan. It's a good question. Exactness, or maybe another word is precision. Or maybe there's a verb, positioning along, positioning along or something. It's like every every element is being thought through afresh before before putting it in place. That's one thing. Another thing is, I was saying putting in place, they hated the word design. So they took elements and they decided to put those elements in a certain place in a certain way, and everything was done for a reason, for the reason to interact with the body as much as possible. For instance, the example I give about the windows, like in one room you have a small and a big window, and in the room across you have a big and a small window. They're switched. So there's a tiny difference, and that's the precision and exactness that I talk about. They think about that and what it does, and as opposed to just doing what's always done and what they say about walls hanging around. It's like the same as usual, and it doesn't do anything new. And I think as an architect, you should try every time to do something new that's an improvement into the life people and the people who live in the house. Yeah, so that's.
Thanks.
I think Jonathan has something to say.
Thank you. Wow. As I learn more about Gen Linen from this presentation, Yoko, I'm just like, oh, like you're telling me something that I didn't know that my body already knew. And there was like a sudden like realization of like, oh, like this is why I wanted to study in this building and not this one, and why I felt safe here and not safe there. So feeling a lot of gratitude for giving me like intellectual awareness. I mean, it's more than intellectual, but more of an awareness of what was actually happening. And a question for you. In the first photo that you showed, one of the things about it seemed to be that it was very open, and like there's a sense of freedom that a person could experience in that space where everything was like nicely symmetrical, where it seemed like there weren't, let me know if I got this correctly, there weren't differences between the symmetries. It was actually completely symmetrical, that I didn't need to like wrestle with any differences between what things look like. But then it seemed like in the second, and like one other thesis of the architects or philosophers or all of that, is that like, oh, let's put like two toilets, or like let's make things slightly having different thresholds, so that like you kind of have to wrestle with it and consciously. So those seem at odds to me. So I'm kind of curious about that.
That's an interesting question. Well, first of all, the first image is the very first architectural work. They call it procedural architecture, and it's like it's in its purest form. It's almost like a temple, and actually they quoted the Ryoanji Gardens in this very structure, which is, you know, a meditative place in itself. And so it's, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's the difference. And they, you know, one, it's like all very pure, and in the other one, it's kind of wild and a lot of, you know, things poking at you and like, so it's, yeah, it's a different time. It's a different type of structure. You know, the second one, it's a place to live in, and they, over time, they also, you know, developed their theory and kind of wanted to make it usable for everyone. And they came at you know, they figured out that, you know, the best place to have this experience by people is like in a place where they will always be doing their normal daily things. They called it a daily research laboratory, you know, your own house. It's not a museum, it's not a temple, it's your own house. And yeah, it's a way more active situation.
Yeah, the thing that
I don't know.
strikes the thing that strikes interest for me from a tech background, like when designing websites, we intentionally design them so that there's only like one thing you can do. You click this button to sign up. You keep scrolling on Facebook, so you just keep going in this one like mindless way. I noticed the parallel in the way. I mean, 180 degrees, but the same axis.
Right. Yeah, but some of that, it also gives kind of a bodily comfort. So you have to have both in a way. It's what somebody, I forgot who said, like, maybe it was BJ saying like, you also have to have something standard or something normal. It just reminds me of that. It's not the same. And that's also in this house. This house actually has rectangular rooms, which is combined with the wild floors and everything. So you always have to have something that's standard and new. Even Jonathan talks about that too, right? I forgot the context, but he does talk about it. Yeah.
Seems like two different movements of something that's extraordinarily comforting and something that is new and challenging. That the new is in common, that the architecture sort of wakes you up and provides landing sites for your attention to land on, but also that it's either soothing you or challenging you or both.
It seems like both spaces are an invitation to both play and to navigate in a normal fashion. The thought that I had was, if I was in, you said that there were rooms that were more traditional. You said
Yeah.
rectangle. So
Yes.
what I thought as an experiment, I wonder what would have happened if someone was staying there for a week. Would they play more? Would they be in the playrooms, or like how would they distribute their time between the innovative spaces or the traditional spaces? And what age groups would did it have to do with it? Like I just had bunion surgery. I was thinking I could never navigate those freaking floors. I mean, oh my God, I'd be crawling around, which could be fun, I guess. But it's like curious, like how much freedom would someone allow themselves to explore and examine the new and uncharted, and how much they would stay in the spaces that were more familiar and traditional. That's trying to find that right balance.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because it's like, yeah, it's another way of having a choice, right?
Yes.
And it's the same kind of like decision you're making, or flexibility than choosing which toilet you're going to use that day, right? Too. Like, when does my body feel now that it really wants to go to the traditional place, like, and then be aware of that, and like, what happens inside when I feel I have the need for that, or the other way around. So in this house, it's kind of like, I mean, the undulating area, it's the middle area. It's connecting the traditional rooms. So you always have to cross it in a way. You can't really avoid it, but you can always go from there into the room.
And so the design promotes, the design in and of itself makes you, sometimes you can make the decision, and sometimes the architecture, the space makes it for you. Because if you always have to go through that space, then you don't actually have a choice.
No, but well, yeah, but there's a difference in going through and being in too,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe we should go into our breakout rooms and have people experiment. I thought you had a wonderful idea for our breakout rooms, and we want to give people a chance to play with that.
Yeah, okay. Shall we have that image up to put people in the mood while I explain the theme for the breakout? right?
Is this the one that looks like a mask? It says jumbo. It's the last one I have.
It's like, it looks like a cloth. It says cloth.
Like a-
Untitled.
This
You
is the
got it?
last one that I have. I'm going to share the screen now.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah. So this is an early drawing about how to first start making an architectural space. And you see kind of two people, you know, on some plane. It could be like the earth, and they're kind of crawling on their knees. Actually, one is on her knees, and the other one is, I think, on her knees is Madeline, and the other one standing up must be Arakawa, and he's like holding, making a space for himself, and so is she. And so before we go out in the breakout rooms, we would like you to think about, or feel about, or sense into yourself, like what kind of space would you like to make for yourself? Imagine an environment for your architectural body, for what it would want right now. And it can be anything, anyway, big, small, light, dark, soft, hard. It could be smelly, it could be warm or cool, or it could feel in a certain way. It could be sound. Anything you can think of, any, you know, anything from the environment that you want to include as landing sites in this environment you want to make for yourself. So if I'll take a minute and reflect on that, and then we will go in breakout rooms of, let's see how many people, 3 people. And what time do we have? 9:20. Let's see. We'll take 10, 15 minutes. I don't hear you, Lynn.
15 minutes, maybe, for 5 minutes to each. And, and so we're just imagining the environment that we would create for ourselves at this moment. What our bodies would need, the colors, the shapes, the textures, the smells, and see what comes, you know, through focusing. Let it come, let it emerge. What kind of surface would we be lying down, or walking through, or sitting in, or Yoga, I bet you're really interested to see what they made.
Yes. What spaces did you make? What environments? It doesn't have to be a space. Environments.
I was in an eagle's nest,
Oh,
Wow.
very high up, a big wide eagle's nest, lined with blue velvet.
Wow.
Wow. And what feeling did it give to you? Like, what was your body's feeling?
Oh, the body was of a safe place, safe, and comfortable, but open, feeling the wind and feeling, yeah.
Yeah. Who else wants to share their space with us?
Well, I had this, I'm looking for an architect to build it. I was thinking as I'm aging, I'm feeling like I want to have a sense of being in connection with communities, with a community, and that we each have different resources to give to each other.
Yeah.
And that I would love to live in a large space where there are different kind of those people all with different resources, that we could be there for each other. But then this space would be a little bit of some of what you have shown us, and it would change even more because it would change. So there would be some community space that would be with the architecture that you are introducing, or you introduced me to. And so I don't know how to express it yet. It's still in creation, but there will be also cave kind of places where I could, my little retreat, or where there would be something home or familiar, or so this is not very clear. I'm sorry. This is in construction in my mind.
That it's not clear, right?
It's a
There's a lot of
tentativeness procedure.
possibilities. Marvin, were you gonna tell us something?
Well, we came on to the idea of a very theatrical space that we could have a console, and we would operate the console to design the space that we wanted to be in at that very moment. So if we wanted a wall, we could get it. If we wanted a waterfall, we could get it. If we wanted a tree, I'll bring it in. And it would be cozy. It would fit our mood at the time.
Yeah.
But not a coffin. That would, that, as the architects had decided, that we want something alive and fits our mood, but stable and safe.
Yes. So yeah, so there's stability and safety, and at the same time there's a lot of space for flexibility and maybe a little bit unexpectedness. Yeah.
Our group seemed to have like two parts and of us, two needs, and I hear it a little bit with other people, but it was feeling comfort and pleasure in one's things around. And for me, it even was clutter. And then there was also the need for space. As well, you just said that, right?
Yeah. Clutter and space.
Yeah, they're like two almost antagonistic needs.
Yeah.
I think for me, clutter's winning out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was on the other side of the coin in that group. I wanted the dome with all glass walls and nothing inside, and the nature, the changeability of nature to be the tentativeness that I experienced. And then also the ability to bring in a plant, put it in a pot, and then put it back outside, like the ability to interact with the environment And there was just something, because we're antique design, the house full of antiques, and I really need space. I'm like looking for space. So yeah.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
taken with the floors in Yoga's picture, and how they invited climbing up. And I would add to that a pathway that was relatively labeled so that I have choice in how I walk in that space.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you. Lynn, did you have a space?
Well, I was just thinking about mine. What came to me was that I wanted to be in something old, and I wanted to be in an old Italian village, in a room with a big window overlooking the square with church bells and markets, and then I thought, but that's not, I mean, that's something that is, but maybe it was to be able to create the old, to be in different spaces. But in that mood, it was being on a bed in overlooking this village square. So I don't know if I was playing right. Yeah, I was trying to get myself to make something completely new and different, but my mind wouldn't go there. My body wouldn't go there. It wanted the old.
Yeah. It must have a quality, a certain quality you're
Yes,
looking
yes,
for.
yes, yes. That's very good. Thank you, Yoga. Yes, it's the quality of through the ages. And here it's alive now, and it's these streets and market stalls have been here for ages, and I'm a continuity of that, and something like that.
Yeah.
So just want to thank you so much, Yoga, for just this expansive. I just loved the concreteness of the architecture and the fancifulness and the philosophy.